Hello, everybody. I'm Justin Perez, and welcome back to the Air Raid Saturdays College Football YouTube channel. Before we get into this, I want to say that I just posted a video that I worked really hard on over the weekend. It's just a compilation of almost every single college football touchdown scored during week one of this 2023 season. I'll leave the card in the upper right hand corner if you want to go check that out. I spent a lot of time working on that video, so if you guys can just give it a like or a comment, whatever, that'll be really nice. But anyway, I'll keep the card in the upper right hand corner. Right now for this video, we're just going to be going over the Associated Press top 25 rankings, and then we're going to compare that, or not compare it, but we're going to show their top 25 rankings and then my own personal top 25 rankings, which I did after the Duke Clemson game on Monday night. As a matter of fact, I did my own top 25 polls earlier today when I was in school, probably like around 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then the official top 25 rankings came out a few hours after that. And, both polls, both the APs and my polls are really similar. They have some differences, but they're pretty similar with most of the teams, or not if all the teams that are on both of our polls. So yeah, we're just gonna get into it. First, I'll just be showing the Associated Press top 25 rankings first, along with the teams receiving other votes, and then I'll just go through my list, and then if probable, explain why I ranked the team where I have them on my list. So showing off the Associated Press's top 25 rankings, the top two teams remain the same. That's Georgia at number 1. Georgia so far, or as of now, has received 58 first place votes, and they're 1-0, and they beat Tennessee Martin on Saturday by a score of 48-7. Number 2 is Michigan, receiving 2 first place votes, 1-0 to start the season, by beating East Carolina 30-3 on Saturday. The third team, or the team ranked third, is Alabama, who moved up 1 spot from last week's AP poll. Alabama is 1-0 as of right now, and they beat Middle Tennessee State 56-7. And then we have a brand new team ranked at number 4, and that's the Florida State Seminoles. Florida State is actually receiving 3 first place votes, and they moved up 4 spots from last week's official poll. They beat LSU, I believe. It was on Sunday night. They beat LSU 45-24. Fifth is Ohio State, who's 1-0. They beat Indiana 23-3 only, and they dropped 2 spots. Sixth is USC, who remains unchanged from the preseason rankings. They still rank 6th. They are 2-0, remember, because they played San Jose State in week 0. So they won that game, and they won last week's game against Nevada 66-14. 7th is Penn State, who also remains the same from last week position-wise. They beat West Virginia 38-15. Number 8 on the list is Washington, who moved up 2 spots from last week's poll, and they beat Boise State 56-19. Number 9 is Tennessee, who moved up 3 spots after beating Virginia 49-13. Number 10 is Notre Dame, who moved up 3 spots after their drubbing of Tennessee State. The Fighting Irish won 56-3. Remember, they also played against Navy in week 0, so Notre Dame is 2-0. Number 11 on the list is Texas, who remains unchanged from last week's rankings. They're 1-0 after they beat Rice easily 37-10. 12 is Utah, who beat Florida on, I believe, Thursday night 24-11. Utah moved up 2 spots from last week's rankings. 13 is Oregon, who moved up 2 spots after their drubbing of Portland State by a final score of 81-7. LSU dropped down 9 spots after their humiliating loss on Sunday night to Florida State. Final score was the Seminoles 45, Tigers 24. LSU dropped down 9 spots, but they did not have the biggest drop off in the polls, as we'll see later on. 15 is Kansas State. Kansas State, the Wildcats, moved up 1 spot after beating Southeast Missouri State 45-0. 16th is Oregon State, who blew out San Jose State on the road 42-17, and the Beavers moved up 2 spots. Really good first game for DJ Uiagalelei at the quarterback position for Oregon State. I believe he scored 3 touchdowns total in the game. So that was nice. 17 is North Carolina, who sees themselves move up 4 spots from last week's ranking. North Carolina took down South Carolina and by 2 scores. Final mark 31-17. 18th on the list is Oklahoma, who just absolutely demolished Arkansas State last week, 73-0. Oklahoma moves up 2 spots from last week's poll. Number 19 is Wisconsin, who moved up, or did not move at all. They're in the same position. But Wisconsin, they beat Buffalo Saturday 38-17. 20th is Ole Miss, who moved up 2 spots from last week's poll as they beat Mercer 73-7. Duke comes in at number 21 after upsetting Clemson last night. This is a Tuesday night as I'm recording this. So after last night, Duke moves up to 21st in the country. Duke, believe it or not, this last night's win over Clemson was their first win over an opponent ranked in the AP top 10 since Duke's win over, ironically, Clemson back in 1989. That was during the Steve Spurrier days, which were short-lived. So Duke beat Clemson in 1989, and they beat them last night to move up 21 in the poll. They were unranked last week, as well as Colorado, who comes in at 22nd. They upset TCU in a thriller, 45-42. They were unranked last week. Coming in at number 23 is Texas A&M, who drubbed New Mexico 52-10. They remain unchanged from last week's position, and so does Tulane after they beat South Alabama 37-17, a 20-point differential, dominating win for the Green Wave to start their season. And coming in at number 25 is the Clemson Tigers. Clemson dropped 16 spots all the way down to number 25 after their embarrassing loss to Duke last night by a score of 28-7. So Clemson, the biggest drop-off in the polls, and the biggest rise in the polls is North Carolina and Florida State, as they each moved up 4 spots in the polls. So Florida State and North Carolina have the biggest rise. They moved up 4 spots, and Clemson has the biggest fall as they fell down 16 spots from 9 all the way down to 25. Now, as far as other teams receiving votes, I'll go through these quickly. The teams that dropped out of the AP poll last week were Iowa and TCU. Iowa, I believe, I actually have it here. Iowa was ranked 25th last week, and TCU was ranked 17th. Iowa actually beat Utah State 24-14, and you can see they're receiving 73 top 25 votes, but obviously very unconvincing win for Iowa. And then TCU, they were ranked 17th last week, but they lost to Colorado on Saturday, so they dropped from the polls, but they're still getting 27 top 25 votes. I'll go through the other teams here who are receiving top 25 votes. UCLA is receiving 55 votes after their win over Coastal Carolina. Arkansas is receiving 28 after their drubbing over Western Carolina. Kentucky is receiving 15 after beating Ball State 44-14. Pittsburgh is receiving 8 votes after destroying Wofford 45-7. Mississippi State's receiving 5 votes after beating Southeast Louisiana 48-7. Miami is receiving 4 votes after their big win over Miami of Ohio 38-3. North Carolina State's receiving 4 votes after their pretty good win over UConn. Wyoming's receiving 3 top 25 votes after their double overtime upset win over Texas Tech. Troy's receiving 3 top 25 votes for beating Stephen F. Austin 48-30. Fresno State's receiving 3 votes after they beat Purdue. Minnesota has 3 after they beat Nebraska on a last-second field goal on Thursday night, I believe. Auburn is receiving 3 votes after they beat UMass 59-14. Texas State is actually receiving 2 votes for their shocking upset over Baylor. This is the first time that Texas State has gotten anywhere close to making the top 25, and they only received 2 votes. But you know what? Screw it. They deserve it after a lot of tumultuous seasons. They deserve to have a little bit of the national spotlight. Obviously, they're not going to get a lot of it because of the whole Colorado game and Duke winning last night. But Texas State definitely deserves to be up there and definitely deserves some recognition. And I'm glad they're at least getting a couple votes. What an upset for Texas State. And then also you have Iowa State, who is receiving 2 votes after beating Northern Iowa 30-9. Texas Tech is still receiving a vote even after they lost to Wyoming 35-33. UCF has a vote after they drubbed Kent State 56-6 on Thursday night, I believe. Illinois is receiving a vote after they got by Toledo 30-28. Washington State is receiving a vote after they destroyed Colorado State 50-24. James Madison is receiving a vote after beating Bucknell 38-3. Houston has a vote after getting by UTSA 17-14. And Louisville has a top 25 vote after beating Georgia Tech in a really exciting game 39-34. So that's the official top 25 poll, along with the other teams receiving votes. Now let's transition over to my personal top 25 poll. Alright, so now let's transition over to my personal top 25 poll. This is who I have ranked for me personally. I'm just going to go through it. So obviously the top 4, like I said, I did this a little while, probably like an hour and a half or 2 hours before the official top 25 rankings came out. So pretty much the Associated Press and I were on the same page a little bit. Some of the teams are ranked in the exact same spots, although some teams I put up, some teams, I moved down, some teams I moved up, whatever. But you'll notice the changes for sure compared to comparing both polls. So my top 4 is the same as the AP's top 4. So Georgia and Michigan are 1 and 2, no change for them. Alabama moved up 1 spot for me from my preseason poll. And Florida State moved up 3 spots from 7 to 4 on my personal poll. USC went up to number 5, while Ohio State dropped down 3 spots. And the reason why I dropped down Ohio State down 3 spots to 6 is because a lot of people are giving Ohio State leeway because they're Ohio State, but I don't know, man. It's like every single year when Ohio State plays Indiana, they just never are able, at least it's been this way for the last few years, they're just never able to put together a dominating effort. They're usually in a close game in the first half, and then when the second half comes around, Ohio State scores a couple of scores to make it a little bit more out of reach. But it was just a really flawed performance from the Buckeye standpoint. This game against Indiana should not have been anywhere near as close as the score indicates, but it was. So Ohio State drops down 3 spots. Have Penn State moving up 1 spot from 8 to 7 after their win over West Virginia. Tennessee moved up 2 spots after their win over Virginia from 10 to 8. Same thing with Washington. They move up from 11 to 9 after their dominating effort against Boise State. I got Utah in the top 10. I have Utah 10th in the country. They moved up from 13 on my personal list to 10 now after that pretty good effort, that pretty good win against Florida. The defense was just absolutely amazing against the Gators. They just shut them down the whole way. Really, really impressive to watch. So I have Utah in at number 10. Texas in at number 11 with the very minute 1 spot rise in the ranking, in my rankings. Oregon moved up 2 spots from 14 to 12 after their drubbing of Portland State. LSU actually went down 8 spots on my poll. Now on the Associated Press poll, LSU dropped all the way to 14. I put them in at number 13. I mean, I don't, of course they deserve to get dropped down the polls, but I don't think they deserve to get dropped down so bad. And I think the AP got it right. I mean, Florida State, yeah. I mean, the way that LSU played in that second half obviously did not help their cause. It wasn't like it was a close second half, because it wasn't. But the fact that LSU lost to a team like Florida State, who is in contention for a college football playoff spot, really, there's really not much shame in that. It's just the way that they lost that caused them to suffer that big time fall on both my poll, and the AP's poll. But they only dropped down 8 spots compared to 9 on the official poll, so LSU's 13. Notre Dame only moves up 1 spot on my list. They're 2-0, but again, they were against Navy and Tennessee State. If one of these 2 wins came against, a really good team or bigger competition, bigger team, then I probably would have Notre Dame in the top 10. But since they played back-to-back really, not terrible opponents, but weak opponents for Notre Dame standard. I could only move up one spot. I'm sorry. North Carolina, I had them move up 5 spots, so they went from 20 to 15 on my list after they just drubbed South Carolina by 2 scores. That was a big game for North Carolina. Kansas State remains the same, so no change. Oregon State moves up 1 spot after they beat San Jose State. Same with Tulane, who moves up 1 spot in my polls after beating South Alabama by 20. Ole Miss moves up 2 spots from 21 to 19 as they destroyed Mercer 73-7. Wisconsin moves up 2 spots from 22 to 20 after they beat Buffalo. Duke also comes in. Duke and Colorado also come in to my top 25 polls as well. Ironically, I placed them in the exact same positions that the Associated Press put them in as well. So Duke comes in at 21, Colorado comes in at 22. 2 brand new teams coming into my top 25. Clemson moves down 14 spots, number 23. And I don't know. I was kind of torn on putting Clemson at number 25. But then again, Duke is a pretty damn good team anyway, so it was like whatever. I just put them at 23. And then also 2 more new teams that enter my personal poll are Oklahoma and Texas A&M. Now, if you watch my preseason poll video, I mentioned that heading into a preseason poll, I do not believe that teams with the losing record should be on the preseason top 25 poll heading into the next year. Obviously, Texas A&M and Oklahoma disappointed plenty. Oklahoma barely got to a bowl game. They finished 6-7, and Texas A&M finished 5-7 last year. But it looks like they're back to where they should be. And I know that Oklahoma beat Arkansas State and that Texas A&M beat New Mexico, but still, for teams looking to right the ship, for teams looking to put last year behind them, they came out and they played really, really well on both sides of the ball, and they just destroyed their opponents. So as a result, I had to put Oklahoma and Texas A&M during the last 2 spots. I was debating for the longest of time if I should put Clemson at 25 and then put Oklahoma and Texas A&M at 23 and 24 respectively, but I decided to keep Clemson at 23 and just put Oklahoma and Texas A&M in at 24 and 25, because when you think about it, New Mexico and Arkansas State were not going to have a chance in hell to beat either Oklahoma or Texas A&M. But Duke, at least heading into the game, I saw Duke being really competitive with Clemson. And obviously, it's bigger competition, better competition. So that's why I have Clemson ranked ahead of Oklahoma and Texas A&M. I know there's going to be some people that have an issue with that. That's okay. It is what it is. Everybody has their own different opinions, their own views, their own tastes, and that's fine. So these are my personal top 25 rankings, and I just showed you the Associated Press rankings. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think I got my rankings wrong? Do you think one of the teams that I ranked are a little bit too high? Do you think one team is a little bit too low? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And also, let me know what you guys think of the official AP Top 25 poll. And also tell me what you think they got wrong as well. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Very quick vid, just looking at both top 25 polls. Once again, I'm Justin Perez for the A-Raid Saturdays College Football YouTube channel. I hope you enjoy watching. Remember to please smash that like button, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys soon. I will be going through my top 10 games of the week very soon. And I'll also post a video doing the point spread picks again as quick as I possibly can. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy and have a great rest of your day.